Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History, Spiritual Quest. We're going through the book of John, the fourth book of the New Testament, and the Impersonal Life by Joseph Benner, one of Elvis's favorite spiritual books. And we're in chapter 6 of the Impersonal Life, and hopefully we're going to be closing it out today so that we can move on to chapter 7 in the book of John. But first, let's start with a song. And this is a brand new song. And it's about the frustration and heartache that Elvis felt in his search for love, specifically the love of a woman, the love of marriage. He had great difficulty in finding this true love, and I believe it's one of the reasons that drove him into this spiritual search. This song is called Frustration and Heartache. Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate seeing you here. And I'll talk to everyone on the other side of this song.
He walked through the chapel, vows gone too fast. Flashbulbs were burning, but the moment didn't last. He carried us singing, sunlight in their bed, but the silence kept whispering inside her head. He's stuck in a hotel of love he can't hold. Every room is crowded, every story grows cold. Frustration's his shadow, it won't let him be. Heartbreak keeps knocking, old flames he can see. He called her my wife, kissed her in the light. She cooked his bacon, held him through the night. But her picture was simple, just two alone, while the world kept intruding. Love turned to stone. Their eyes met again, the fire still strong. He dropped to one knee, said he loved her all along. But the door closed behind them, the moment couldn't stay. She felt the heat fading as he walked away on the speedway set. She fell in too deep. He kissed her softly, a secret she keep. I'm sorry, he whispered, then he let her go. Now she treasures the memory more than you'll know. He's stuck in a hotel of love he can't hold. Every room is haunted, every story grows cold. Frustration and heartache, they echo through time. Three women, one singer, lost in the ride. If love's a hotel, he's trapped in the hall. Doors keep on closing, he can't find home at all.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're going to hear more echoes from people who knew about Elvis's spiritual journey as he walked through the text that we're about to read. But we're going to start with a quote from Marty Lacker, who was a lifelong friend of Elvis. He knew Elvis in high school, and he joined Elvis in the 1960s as part of the Memphis Mafia. And he would travel back and forth from Memphis to California to do the movies with Elvis. And he took care of things like payroll and writing checks and balancing that checkbook and holding on to receipts for stuff that Elvis had bought and all kinds of paperwork. He was good at paperwork. And what Marty says is life after death was one of Elvis's beliefs, and he often talked about it. He believed he had been put on this earth for a special reason, but he didn't know what the reason was, or at least he never expressed it. So Marty tells us he knew that Elvis was searching for a special reason, or that he at least believed there was a special purpose to his life, but that he never told Marty what it was. Even though he often talked about eternal life with Marty, or within Marty's hearing. Now, Marty was a Jew. He was Jewish. I don't believe Marty was a practicing Jew, but he was not a Christian. So he did not have the same beliefs that Elvis had. So when Elvis was talking to Marty about eternal life, he was talking to him about the Word of God. And in this picture, we can see Elvis and Linda Thompson, who was a long-term girlfriend in the 1970s. But let's focus our attention on the lady on the left for a moment. Do any of you happen to know who this lady is? She was a lifelong friend of Elvis Presley. She knew Gladys. Gladys Presley loved this woman, and this woman loved Gladys Presley. She was good friends with Vernon Presley. She was a friend of the family, and she had known them in Tupelo. So Elvis had ways to keep himself grounded, because Elvis, once he started to become famous, well, he liked that fame. He always enjoyed being Elvis Presley. And that meant the fame and the recognition that came with it. But he knew that the fame, if he let it, would grow out of control inside him and lead to arrogance. And that it would separate him from his roots, and he did not want that. So he always kept himself surrounded with people who would keep him grounded in his upbringing and in his faith. And this lady, who Terry has identified as Mrs. McComb, that is correct, she is Janelle McComb. And she was a writer. She was known for her talents in writing. And she had a large role in preserving the legacy of Elvis Presley, including writing the epitaph on his gravestone. So if you've ever been to Memphis, you've seen her writing. And she helped design the Elvis Presley Birthplace Museum in Tupelo. She also donated a special Bible to the chapel there that was later stolen. It was very sad. And she was the author of the 1982 book Elvis Presley's Graceland, The official guidebook. But when I say that she was a lifelong friend, let's hear from Janelle how far back she goes. We know Marty went back to high school. How far back does Janelle go? She says, the doctor who delivered Elvis was my granddaddy's best friend, Dr. Will Hunt. Dr. Will was a Sunday school teacher when I was a little girl. There wasn't about 5,000 people in Tupelo, and everybody knew or knew of just about everybody else. When Elvis was born, Dr. Hunt announced his birth in the church, and that the Presleys had given birth to twins, and one of the twins had died. Some of the congregation went to visit and took things. So she was there, not at the birth itself, but she knew the doctor who delivered Elvis. She may have been part of that congregation who went to visit and took things, but she was there when Dr. Hunt made the announcement. And like she says, everybody in town knew everybody else. And she became friends with the Presleys, and she would come up and visit Elvis at Graceland. Well, she'd come up and visit his parents to start with, and then spent a lot of time talking with Elvis about spiritual matters. And Terry points out that she also wrote the poem that Elvis wanted, and she did write a beautiful poem for Elvis. And we will probably look at that in a future episode. The reason I'm talking about her right now is that she appears in this picture. But what I want to focus on in the picture is, number one, that you can see Elvis is wearing a cross. And we've seen Elvis wear crosses in other pictures, and we've looked at a large number of crosses that Elvis owned and gifted to other people and that were gifted to him, much in the way that Elvis owned many Bibles. And he gifted them out to others, and they were gifted to him. So Elvis not only spreads the word, others bring the word to him. It's like a feedback loop. They just, some people who have never seen the word or heard it or understood it, they hear it from Elvis. And others hear it or see in Elvis that he needs to hear something in it. And they bring him those messages. So it's kind of beautiful when you think about it. But when we look at Linda, you can see that Linda has a very special pendant on. It's very large. This is a 1.5 inch multi-stone diamond pendant necklace with a relief of Jesus Christ on one side, with diamonds set in the eyes. It sounds pretty neat, huh? Let's take a look at it. And this is it. 1.5 inches. I think that's bigger than a 1 ounce bullion round, like a silver round. I think that's a little bigger than that. So it's a fairly good size coin. And you can see a picture of Christ on the front. And you can see that his eyes are 2 diamonds, that he has 3 emeralds in his hair, and that he has 3 rubies, which I believe are indicating the blood of Christ. You can even see that there are tears on his face. And I would say this is a depiction of Christ at the crucifixion. We can't see the cross, but I believe this is a picture of Jesus in agony and asking for forgiveness because they know not what they do. And this is the medallion that Linda is wearing in that picture. On the opposite side, which we're going to call the rear, but I guess it's up to you if you were to wear this, which is the rear and which is the front. It's a relief of the Virgin Mary. And this piece Elvis received as a gift. Elvis did not go out and purchase this piece. It was a gift from a fan. And Elvis liked it, and he wore it several times before he gave it to Linda Thompson. And it even comes with a red suede bag to keep it in. And that's how the fan gave it to him, in this red suede bag. And then Linda Thompson wears this beautiful medallion, and everywhere she goes while she's wearing it, she's spreading the word. And here's what Linda Thompson says about it. She says, this very meaningful medallion was a gift to Elvis from a very devoted fan early on in our relationship. He wore this medallion several times before giving it to me. Elvis and I shared a Christian faith, so his gift to me of this beautiful medallion of Christ that he had personally worn was very meaningful. Elvis was well known for his love of gospel music and for his deeply religious beliefs. The depiction of Christ is encrusted with diamonds and rubies to represent the blood of Christ, of Jesus. The photo taken at Graceland of Elvis and me wearing the necklace was taken shortly after Elvis placed the medallion around my neck as a gift. Elvis grew up Pentecostal and I was Southern Baptist, so we were both fervent yet never dogmatic in our religious beliefs. Hi Tarzan, thank you for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. I'm glad you could make it too. And so what's important about this quote from Linda is this very last line, that we were never dogmatic in our religious beliefs. I think we see that in Elvis's journey and in his desire to spread this word to people like his friend Marty Lacker, who is Jewish and not a Christian. And therefore, according to Elvis's Pentecostal and Linda Thompson's Southern Baptist beliefs, Marty's not going to go to heaven. Marty's going to be punished. But Elvis knows that Marty's a good person. He wants to intervene for Marty. And he knows the best way to intervene for Marty is for Marty to intervene for himself. But Marty's resistant to that, and Elvis has a lot of friends who are resistant to it. So Elvis gives them the word in a way he thinks they'll be able to consume it. Something that they won't reject. And he's hoping, I think, this is my speculation, that when he gets to heaven himself, and he's wearing those symbols of the other religions, he'll be able to tell God that these people are with me. I know they're good people. We can't judge them to need to be punished. They're good people and they need to come with me. Because he was not dogmatic in his religious beliefs. He was universal. He saw a unity, which is what's being told to us in the Impersonal Life, which is a book that meant a lot to him. And Tarzan's asking, is Pentecostal close to Protestant? It is a form of Protestant. So Southern Baptist, Pentecostal, they're both Protestant. Protestant is a gigantic puzzle of many different congregations, or however you want to theme those splits in the church. And the Protestant just means that all of them lumped together are not Catholic. So there's Catholic, and Catholicism is very rigid and very structured. And nearly everyone in the Catholic belief system, they're believing almost nearly the same thing. Now, there are distinctions in Catholicism, different sects, but not nearly like in the Protestants. And Terry says that it's a nice piece of jewelry. And it is. Especially for a fan to have bought with the diamonds and the rubies and the emeralds. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that really must have been a devoted fan. Tarzan says that my explanation makes sense. Thank you so much, Tarzan. I'm glad that I am able to bring some kind of clarity, because I'm not even sure this is clear to me. Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate seeing you here. Pat, I'm going to flip back so you can see this medallion for a moment, the front. That this is the medallion that Linda Thompson is wearing, that Elvis has given her in the picture. And you can see the rubies, which represent the blood of Jesus Christ. And he's got diamonds in his eyes and emeralds in his crown of thorns. So this is a depiction of Christ on the cross during the crucifixion. So this is a very vivid and visual piece. Pat, I'm going to flip back for you to this picture so that you can see Linda Thompson wearing the medallion, and that she's with Elvis and Janelle McComb, who was a great spiritual influence on Elvis. She too was the same religion as Elvis, grew up in the First Assembly of God Church. And she saw in Elvis deep spirituality. And on the back, it's got a Virgin Mary. And Elvis Presley, here's a quote directly from him. He says, well, Pat asked, I wonder if Linda Thompson still has this today. Well, no, she doesn't. That's why I have a picture of it, because she sold it. It went onto the auction block. So she does not still own this piece. Basically, all the pieces that I get to show you these great pictures of, yeah, they don't own them anymore. They've passed on to somebody else. Now, in a lot of cases, the person who owned them is no longer with us. But in this case, it was voluntarily put up for sale. And Elvis Presley himself said, he has appeared, rejoice that new doors have been opened. And with that, let us move to one of those new doors that Elvis thought he had found, which is the spiritual book, The Impersonal Life by Joseph Benner, and we are in chapter 6. Let me just get set up. All right. And this is where we left off. So I'll begin reading in the text here. And it says, yes, all ideas and all desires come thus from me. They are my ideas and my desires, which I inspire in your mind and heart, in order to bring them through you into outer manifestation. So this chapter has been telling us that all the ideas that we have, those are divine inspiration. But the inspiration itself is not enough. It has to be paired with a desire to bring the inspiration from an idea to reality. And that the desire is also a gift from the Almighty that He places within us to take that inspiration and move it into reality. And that you have to have those two pieces together. And that you can do these things without being aligned. You don't have to be aligned with the I am, which is in your heart, which is your ability to commune with God. And that during that communion, you become aligned with the will of God. But that your secular brain and the desires of your physical body, that they get in the way of that alignment. And much like when you drive a car, eventually the front end is going to come out of alignment. You've hit a lot of potholes. There's been a lot of rough roads out there. You might have even had to drive off-road once or twice. And when you do that, I mean, your car is designed to get you through those things, but then it's got to be maintained, and you've got to realign that front end. And that's what happens to your spiritual self as you encounter these real material world issues. It's going to bounce you out of alignment. And you've got to do your meditation and communion with the I am in your heart. And that when you are aligned with the will of God, that these ideas and these desires that he implants in you will be even greater. And you will consciously move forward with them for his purpose. But that you can do this without understanding that you're moving towards his purpose, and you might even believe you're moving against his purpose, and you might even come to believe the ideas and the desires are yours, that they all came from you. But the book is telling us that is a self-delusion, and it gets in the way of your alignment with the I am. And this might have really spoken to Elvis at moments when he was having trouble understanding his role in the art that he was creating, especially during the movies, when he began to feel that the movies were frivolous and were not transmitting a message that he wanted them to, that the songs that were connected to the movies were terrible, that his artistry was suffering because of the contracts that he had gotten himself into. And this book is telling him that may all be true, but if you focus, even within these limitations, we'll be able to build something amazing. Because you'll be doing it for my will. And even in this moment when you feel you're trapped somewhere that you don't want to be, you're here for a purpose. I've placed you here for a purpose. So I think that might have been comforting to Elvis. And I think this is part of the reason he was searching during this period from 1964 through, say, 1967, is that he was looking for a way to be able to put his faith and his beliefs into his work. And the book says, you have no ideas of your own, and you could not possibly have a desire that came from other than me, for I am all there is. Therefore, all desires are good, and when thus understood unfailingly, come into speedy and complete fulfillment. And I think this is speaking to exactly what Elvis may have been worried about. I've wasted my time with these movies. I'm continuing to waste my time with these movies. And the book is saying, no. All of these desires and what I've led you into so far, the ideas, what you're doing when you get out there and you interpret the lines from the script and you interpret the songs, even though they're not great songs, that this is all for this is good, that I have led you to this, but we can do more now that you are conscious of these decisions that you're making. That we've gotten here through your unconscious efforts. And look how good it is and how much better it could be. And then the book says, you may wrongly interpret my desires, my urges from within, and seek to use them for your own selfish purpose. But even while permitting this, they still fulfill my purpose. For it is only by letting you misuse my gifts and through the suffering such misuse brings, for misuse and suffering are my purifying agents, that I can make you into clean and selfless channel that I require for the perfect expression of my ideas. And so now the book is stating to Elvis that you're in these movies and you feel that you're suffering because of it. And you're supposed to be suffering because I'm purifying you at this moment. So that when we move into the real work, where you're conscious of what you're doing, and you're not just bumbling through life with the desires and the inspiration that I've given you, that are you have fulfilled, but not as greatly as we could have together. Well, now you've come to understand that, and that's the reason for the suffering. And I think that might have helped Elvis as well, because we know that he did suffer while thinking about these parts of his career. And the next section is, we have then first the idea in the mind, and then the desire to bring the idea into outer manifestation. So it again tells us that the order is, you have an idea or an inspiration, and then you pair it with desire, and that's what's going to allow you to manifest this into reality. And the book says, so much for the relation. Now for the process of realization. So the book says we're going to move on to something slightly different now. It says, in accordance with the definitiveness with which the picture of the idea is held in the mind, and the extent to which the idea possesses the personality, does its creative power, impelled by desire, proceed with its work. This it does by compelling the mortal mind to think out or to imagine. And in parentheses it says, image in, which is very interesting. And then it says, or in other words, to build mental forms into which I can pour, as into a vacuum, the impersonal, elemental, vital substance of the idea, which when the word is spoken, either silently or audibly, consciously or unconsciously, at once begins to materialize itself by first directing and controlling the consciousness and all the activities of both mind and body, and of all the minds and all the bodies connected with it or related to the idea. For remember, all consciousness and all minds and all bodies are mine, and are not separated, but are one, and wholly impersonal, and then so attracting, directing, shaping, molding conditions, things and events that sooner or later, the idea actually comes forth into definite, tangible manifestation. Now that is a very long, run-on, complex sentence. And I feel like Joseph Benner should have cut that into some smaller ideas, smaller portions. But let's go back to the beginning. And we will work it through one piece at a time. Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciated seeing you here. And I appreciate that you're thanking me for the great work. I'm just doing what I can to show what I think was in Elvis's heart. But of course, these are all my opinions. And your opinions are also welcome. So if you have opinions, feel free to put them into the comments, put them into the chat. Make sure that you hit the like button, because that tells YouTube to tell more people about this video, so that we can gather more here at Hillbilly Cat History, so that we can all learn together. The comments that come from people who are watching live or on the replay, they're as important as the information that I'm relaying within the videos, because we are putting all of that together to synthesize our ideas about what Elvis was searching for during this period of his life. But I also operate this way in all the series that I'm running. It's really about audience interaction. I know that you guys have been reading and learning about Elvis for years, and I want to be able to tap into that knowledge. So be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to tell other people who love Elvis about Hillbilly Cat history, so that they can come and join us and hear all the original songs that I'm putting out that tell a story about Elvis. I played a new one at the beginning of the episode, and I'm going to play another new one that nobody's ever heard before at the end of this episode. So stay tuned. And back to this text. Let's work through this long sentence, one piece at a time. It says, in accordance with the definitiveness with which the picture of the idea is held in the mind. So this is saying that sometimes you get an idea, and it's not just an idea, it's a fully formed idea in your mind. Like, in my case, I can see a script, or I can see the actual video playing out, or I can see the pictures that I'll put with the words. Okay, so I'll see something like that in my own mind. I'm sure each of you create things and you see it in your own mind. And the extent to which the idea possesses the personality. So I think this is saying, if this is an idea you can't stop thinking about, then it's possessing your personality. That's powerful. And then it goes on to say, does its creative power impelled by desire? So the hold that the idea has on you is its power. And then it's impelled by desire with a capital D, which is the impersonal desire, or the divine desire. We could think of it. It's coming from the I am, directly from God himself. And that you then proceed with its work. And now you've got a capital I, which means the idea itself, which was also with a capital I. It's a divine idea. It's linked directly to God. So that was one sentence. And that was a nice short sentence. Now we get into the really long one. And it says, this it does by compelling the mortal mind to think out or to imagine, which it then defines as image in. So it's telling you that you will see the image of this idea in your mind. And that's thinking out. You're not actually bringing anything out. You're thinking it in your mind. The image is inside. Or, in other words, to build mental forms. Now, when it says the word forms, it's talking about, there's two different ways you could think about this. It's like a concrete form. Like, if you know any carpenters, I think most of us, when we hear the word carpenter, we think about a person who builds a house out of wood or other items out of wood. But in the construction industry, one of the most common jobs that a carpenter does is they build forms for concrete, which means that they build a wooden structure, and the concrete is poured into that structure and then takes that form. And then the wood is pulled away. So when you see the final structure, there's no wood. And you think, well, nobody needed a carpenter for this. But they did. Because it's the carpenters who made the forms. Another way you could think about this is toy collecting is very, very popular on YouTube. And so I grew up with Star Wars action figures. And that's one of the most popular things to collect on YouTube. And they'll tell you about how they're made. And the way they made these little plastic figures is somebody created a mold. And the mold is a hollow form that you pour the plastic into, and then the plastic takes that shape. And in this case, it looks like a little human figure. So this is telling you to build those molds or those forms, but in your mind. They're mental constructs. Now, when you talk about the Star Wars figures and the toys, the investment by the company that makes them is in the molds. It's very, very cheap to produce the plastic figures themselves, but it's much more expensive to create the mold in the first place. And then these molds become so important and so valuable that they're traded and sold within the industry to other companies. So like here in America, Kenner, the toy company, made the Star Wars figures. But over in Britain, this is for Terry and Elvis history, it was Palatoys who had a contract with Kenner. And one of the pieces of that contract is they got to use the molds. And so their toys are not exactly the same, their Star Wars line, as the American line, but they used the molds because that's how important these things are. So molds and forms, like the book is telling us to make in our minds, these are the most important piece of the process if this was a physical process. And then it says, to build mental forms into which I can pour, as into a vacuum, the impersonal, elemental, vital substance of the idea. This is like making the Star Wars figure. You've made the mold, and now you pour into the vacuum of the mold, which is the empty space. The plastic, the hot liquid plastic, which in this case is the impersonal or divine, elemental, vital substance of the idea. It's the plastic that makes the Star Wars figure. And then this says, which when the word is spoken, and the word is capitalized, so this is scripture, or the command directly from God. When the word is spoken either silently or audibly, consciously or unconsciously, so you don't even have to recognize that it's the word. The idea at once begins to materialize itself by first directing and controlling the consciousness and all the activities of both mind and body, and of all minds and all bodies connected with or related to the idea. So this is saying that once God becomes involved and he's poured this divine plastic into the mold of this toy figure or whatever it is that we're making in our minds, that is the idea from God, that this then will harness the power of our bodies and bring that, we are a form of organization against chaos, our very bodies. And we're now going to harness that organization, that struggle against chaos, into this idea, which will be the formation of another organized structure. Whatever it is we're creating, it's organization from chaos. And it also says that we will be able to connect to all the minds and all the bodies connected or related to the idea. This is a reflection back on the unity, which we have already been told, that we are a cell in the body of the divine. And the divine is telling us other cells within the body, just as our body will be tapped in full and in coordination to bring this idea to fruition, so will all the other cells that are connected to this idea, because it's not your idea, it's the divine's idea, and he's got help already lined up for it. And then it goes on to say, for remember, all consciousness and all minds and all bodies are mine, and are not separated, but are one and wholly impersonal. That's the idea we just talked about. And then so attracting, directing, shaping, and molding conditions, things and events that sooner or later, the idea actually comes forth in definite, tangible manifestation. I like this sooner or later because it means that we have, I think, a predilection towards instantaneous or immediate will manifestation, that we want what we think about to be true immediately. We don't really want to have to put a lot of work into it. Elvis was very into this. He liked things to happen immediately. And this book is saying sooner or later. It's not putting a timeline on things. It says that the timeline for the ideas is going to be different for each idea. And it's going to depend on who else has to be involved. But that you should have faith that as long as this idea has hold in your personality, that it's moving towards fruition, as long as you're putting your part of the effort forward. And the book says, and so it is that everything, every condition, every event that ever transpired was first an idea in the mind. This is a passage which is saying humanity, humans themselves, everything that we see that's been created by humanity, the civilization that we live in, the ideas that we have, the books that we read, everything, it all started in a human mind and was placed there by the will of God. And the book says it was by desiring, by thinking, and by speaking forth the word that these ideas came into visible manifestation. This is linking the creation of all things, even those which we have personally created with our own two hands, as manifestation of divine will. That God has created everything, even those pieces which we believe we have personally created. That we are simply a tool that God used to create that. And then the book says, think this out. Prove it for yourself. It says, this you can do if you will, by taking any idea that comes and following it out through the above process to realization. Or by tracing back any feat you have accomplished, any picture you have painted, any machine you have invented, or any particular thing or condition now existing to the idea from which it sprang. So the book says you could prove this to yourself because do you think that this car that you're driving around in, that people just put it together out of pieces that were laying around? No. They had to think through how to make each piece. And that if we trace this back far enough, somebody had an idea. We honor that in history by looking at who created or discovered important things for human civilization. So like many of us would say, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. He didn't, but he did have one of the first working ones. So it's very important for our civilization that Alexander Graham Bell, that he conducted the experiments that he did. Some of us would say Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Well, he didn't, but he did push the light bulb forward and had some he made some great designs with it, And he was really good at business, and that's why we link his name with the light bulb. But we're trying to honor the idea, where the idea came from. And so you could trace back almost anything that is very important to civilization today, and you'll find a name of somebody who were trying to connect as the first person to either make or use that, and that's where the idea sprang from. So this isn't just a Joseph Benner's idea. This is something that is true in humanity as a whole. And then the book says, this is the plan and process of all true thinking and therefore all creation. In other words, all creation begins with an idea. And it says, listen, you have now and always have had through this power of thinking dominion over all the kingdoms of earth. And if you but know it, you have now this moment only to think and speak the word, realizing your power, and that I, God, your omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent self, will bring about the results and the waiting consciousness of the invisible cells of all matter upon which your will and attention become focused, which waiting consciousness is my consciousness, remember, will begin immediately to obey and do exactly according to the image or plans you have prepared by your thinking. Yet another long, complex sentence. So let's look back at this. It says, you have now and always have had through this power of thinking dominion over all the kingdoms of earth. You know, if you're a fan of old movies or old literature, you've probably heard this exact idea. And it was in a very famous 1930s movie. It was called The Wizard of Oz. And when Dorothy makes it to the wizard, and she wants to go home to Kansas, and the wizard finally tells her at the end of the movie, hey, you've had the power all the time. You just got to click these heels of yours together. That's what's being said here. You've always had this power. This isn't something new. It's not something you just picked up. It's always been inside. You just didn't recognize it. So the entire book of The Wizard of Oz was a spiritual awakening for Dorothy, so that she could realize the power that she contained within herself. And the book goes on and it says, if you but know it, you have now this moment only to think and speak the word. So this is speaking to the struggle that you've had creating in the past. And the struggle is because you're misaligned with the I am. And that once you're aligned with the I am and you're speaking the word, you're living in the word, all of these powers will be at your conscious disposal. And that's what the rest of this passage is saying. And you'll be able to harness consciously much greater power than you have through your unconscious creation, which is creation when you are misaligned and you believe the creation is springing from yourself. And this says, for all things are made by the word, and without the word was not anything made that was made. When you can once realize this and you can know that the I am consciousness within you is one with the consciousness of all animate and inanimate matter, and that its will is one with your will, which is my will, and that all your desires are my desires, then you will begin to know and feel me within, and will acknowledge the power and glory of my idea, which is eternally expressing itself impersonally through you. So this is a reflection that you will become even closer to the I am once you are living in the word. but it is wholly necessary that you learn how to think, know how to know your thoughts, those directed by me, from the thoughts of others, how to trace thoughts back to their source and to banish undesirable ones at will from your consciousness, and finally, how to control and utilize your desires so that you will always serve me instead of being a slave to them. So this is just a wrap up of the chapter. That you have to be conscious that the inspiration and the desires are from God. And that the book says, you have within you all possibilities, for I am there. My idea must express, and it must express through you. It will express itself perfectly if you but let it. If you will only still your human mind, put aside all personal ideas, beliefs, opinions, and let it flow forth. All you need do is turn within to me and let me direct your thinking and your desires. Let me express whatever I will. You personally accepting and doing what I desire you to do. Then your desires will come true, your life become one grand harmony, your world a heaven, and yourself one with myself. When you have begun to realize this and have glimpsed something of its inner meaning, then you will be ready to grasp the real import of what follows. So these last few chapters or paragraphs are a promise that if you understand what the chapter has said, you will be able to move forward and get more meaning from the rest of the book. However, it also understands you're still struggling and that you're not going to accept these ideas, and that's okay. It's telling you to keep reading. You're going to get to some understanding at some point, but if you want to meditate on something to understand, this chapter is a good one. That all inspiration comes from God, the desire to fulfill that inspiration comes from God, and then the glory of the creation itself is God's. And that brings us to the end of this chapter, which was a very difficult and long chapter. But we're going to move back into the book of John. We're going to start in the next episode with the review of chapter 6 through the comic book version of the book of John, which I think we all enjoy. So be sure to tune in for the next episode. And for now, I'm going to leave you with a brand new song nobody else has heard yet. And this is a song about Elvis and these texts and what he was searching for and what he was hoping to bring to others. And it's called He Carried Light. And until I see you all again, you all keep on taking care of business.
In the margins of the pages his voice still speaks, whispers of longing, of love that seeks. These are all the notes, every thought, every prayer, a father's searching heart still breathing there. To do your will and my purpose he wrote, a bridge of devotion, a living note. Through the Bible's lines, through the books he kept, the light of his spirit forever swept. Like a bridge through the troubled night, he carried love, he carried light. Every word, every song, every plea was a path to unity. He showed the way and we will follow, through joy, through pain, through each tomorrow. The unseen hand, the guiding flame, love eternal in his name. To hell the book with gold on its face, the impersonal life, his sacred place. Larry gave the gift and Elvis was changed. New doors opened, horizons rearranged. He is within us at all times, he said. A chorus of hope where the faithful are led. Fans sent their prayers, the Bible's the song, and Elvis carried their faith along. Like a bridge through the troubled night, He carried love, He carried light. Every word, every song, every plea was a path to unity. He showed the way and we will follow, through joy, through pain, through each tomorrow. The unseen hand, the guiding flame, love eternal in His name. Show me the way and I will follow. His voice was a prayer through joy and sorrow. The road to seek and never ends. His journey became the gift of friends. From cousin to co-star, from friend to kin, the spirit He carried was shared within. I will sing His praises for all to hear, a song of salvation, a love sincere. Like a bridge through the troubled night, He carried love, He carried light. Every word, every song, every plea was a path to unity. He showed the way and we will follow, through joy, through pain, through each tomorrow. The unseen hand, the guiding flame, love eternal in His name. There's got to be a reason, He said, a purpose unseen, a life spirit led. And through the notes, the prayers, the song, His bridge of love still carries on.